Hey there, deep divers. Ever wonder what happened to that think different energy? You know, the one that made Apple, well, Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're diving into that very question
Okay.
with a fascinating article by tech writer Curt Robbins
All right.
called Apple Inc. Not so different anymore.
Interesting.
And get this, Robbins is a self-proclaimed Apple enthusiast. He's been using their product since 2010, so he's really seen the company evolve firsthand.
Yeah, it's true. And that insider perspective is so valuable here. Apple has this undeniable impact on tech, design, even our culture at large.
Right. Yeah.
So to have someone like Robbins, who's been both a user and a tech expert through these changes, it's a really unique lens we're working with today.
Exactly. Robbins isn't just theorizing here, he's living it. One of the things he talks about is how Apple went from serving a niche group, those artsy techies, to becoming this mainstream giant. Remember when having a Mac was like being in an exclusive club?
Oh, absolutely. It's a classic example of what happens when a brand expands its reach. Think about Volkswagen. They started with the Beetle, a quirky car for a specific crowd, and then became known for reliable family cars. It's not inherently good or bad, but it does make you wonder, does mainstream appeal always come at the cost of a brand's initial identity?
Right. Robbins even jokes about paying double for a Mac back in the day just to be part of that think different crowd. It makes you think about how much of our perception of a brand is about the product itself and how much is about what that product represents.
Yeah.
And then, of course, came the iPhone. Apple went from niche to mainstream almost overnight. Right. Suddenly, everyone had one.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Right.
When a company grows that quickly, they need to make sure their message resonates with a wider audience. But how do they do that without alienating the core customers who are drawn to their initial identity? It's a delicate balance.
It really is. And speaking of navigating change, that brings us to another big shift Robbins points out. The Tim Cook era. Now, Tim Cook is undeniably a brilliant businessman, but as Robbins puts it, he's no Steve Jobs when it comes to showmanship. Remember those Apple product launches? They were events.
Totally.
Like you had to be there.
Yeah.
You know?
CEO transitions are fascinating because they often signal a shift in a company's story. Jobs was a visionary, and his personality was almost inseparable from the brand. It was like, what wild idea will Apple come out with next? Whereas Cook's leadership has been much more about operational excellence.
It's true. And look, I'm sure Tim Cook is a great guy, but Robbins does have a point.
Yeah.
Apple events just aren't as exciting anymore.
Right.
It's all very polished, very corporate now. It makes you wonder, how much does a CEO's personality actually influence a company's image?
Yeah.
Can a brand like Apple maintain its identity with a less charismatic leader at the helm?
It's a fascinating question because we've seen it play out in different ways.
Right.
Take Microsoft, for example.
Right.
Bill Gates had that geek genius aura.
Right.
And when he stepped down, Steve Ballmer, a strong leader in his own right, didn't quite have the same impact on the brand's image. It goes to show that sometimes it's not just about being a good CEO.
Right.
It's about embodying the brand in a way that resonates with people.
Yeah.
Especially when you're following in the footsteps of an icon like Steve Jobs.
Okay, that's a really good point. But operational excellence doesn't exactly scream think different, does it? And that brings us to what Robbins calls the red flags.
Okay.
Specific instances where he feels like Apple is losing its mojo. And you are not going to believe this first one. They're getting rid of the stickers.
Wait, the stickers that come with new Apple products? You mean the ones people put on their laptops and water bottles?
The one and only. No more Apple logo stickers with the iPhone 16, apparently. Something about environmental concerns. I mean, I get it, saving the planet is important, but come on. Those stickers were like a badge of honor. I used to love putting them on my notebooks in high school. It's like, is this overreacting?
Yeah.
Or do these seemingly insignificant details actually matter to the brand's image?
You're touching on something really interesting there. There's actually a whole field of study around this sensory branding. Think about the sound of a Harley-Davidson engine, or the smell of a new car, or even Tiffany's signature blue box. These sensory cues create powerful emotions and lasting impressions that go beyond the product itself.
So you're saying those stickers weren't just stickers.
Yeah.
They were little pieces of the Apple magic.
In a way, yes. They represented that attention to detail, that touch of whimsy that Apple was known for. Now, to be fair, Apple says this decision is purely environmental, which is commendable.
Right.
But some might see it as a sign of streamlining, of maybe becoming a little too corporate.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes you wonder, is this a trade-off they're making as they grow?
It's like they're saying, we're so big now, we don't need to sweat the small stuff. But as you pointed out, sometimes it's the small stuff that makes all the difference. And speaking of things that make a difference, the sticker situation isn't the only red flag Robbins brings up.
Right.
He also delves into Apple TV, and let's just say it might make you rethink your streaming subscriptions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting for me.
Okay.
Apple entering the already crowded streaming market was always going to be a gamble. It's a completely different world from hardware or software.
Right.
You're dealing with creative talent, storytelling, capturing an audience's attention in a sea of endless content.
Right.
And you have to wonder, does Apple have the right kind of magic for this?
Right. And Robbins doesn't hold back on the criticism.
Okay.
He specifically calls out the Clooney and Pitt movie Wolves as a huge disappointment. High production value, big-name stars, but ultimately,
Yeah.
What's your take on this?
I think it speaks to a larger question that Robbins hints at. Is Apple spreading itself too thin? They've gone from this laser-focused innovator to this sprawling tech behemoth with their fingers in so many pies. Can they realistically be everything to everyone?
Yeah.
And if they try, are they risking their own identity in the process?
It's like they've hit that innovator's dilemma or something. Like, you disrupt the market, you become the top dog, and suddenly you're the one at risk of being disrupted.
Yeah.
So where does that leave Apple? Have they lost their edge, or is this all just part of growing up?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there's no easy answer. Brand perception is so complex, so subjective.
Yeah.
What one person sees as a loss of identity, another might see as a natural evolution. It really makes you think about what we value in the brands we choose.
It's true. I mean, I still use Apple products every day, and they're fantastic. Maybe part of me just misses that underdog spirit,
Yeah.
That feeling that Apple was this scrappy company fighting against the establishment.
Right, right. It's like that saying, you always want what you can't have. Maybe we're all a little nostalgic for the days when Apple was the rebellious outsider, even if their products weren't always perfect.
Yeah, maybe there's some truth to that. But you're right, brands, like people, change over time.
Yeah.
The question is, can Apple hold on to enough of that think different magic to stay relevant and exciting in the years to come?
Right.
Or will they just become another big tech company?
That's what makes this conversation so interesting. Robbins' article isn't meant to be the final word on Apple.
Right.
It's a starting point. It's an invitation to look critically at the brands we interact with every day.
Yeah.
And ask ourselves, what do these companies represent to me?
Right.
Have my perceptions changed as they've grown?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So what do you think, listeners? Is Apple still special? Have they become just another tech giant? We want to hear your thoughts.
The next time you pick up your iPhone or open your MacBook, take a moment to really experience it. Do you still feel that spark? Or has the magic faded? Only you can decide.